Hey folks, thanks for tuning in. In this one, I'm going to be interviewing Chris Florida Man Nelson and Sean Cowley. In the first part, we're going to be talking about their Europen trip, and the second part, we'll be talking about their Chaos Cup experience. It's kind of a long one, so I split it up, but the links for either video should be in either video's description if you're interested. Remember to like, share, sub, spread the love, and thanks again. What is up, coaches, cheerleaders, and or warp spawn? We are here with Chris, the Florida Man Nelson, just landed runner-up at Chaos Cup, and Sean Cowley, TO for Chaos Cup 7s, the Second Sons Duels, and some other events as well. A very prominent member in our community. Both were also on the Europen team. We've talked a little bit about Eurobowl and how the US team did there, so we're going to get some perspective from the other side of it too. How y'all doing tonight?
Doing pretty well. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for taking time out of your busy holiday schedules to talk to me here. All right, so let's start off talking about Europen since chronologically it occurred first. What was your preparation method? Did you do anything fancy? Were you fraternizing with the enemy and practicing with them, or how did that go down?
Sure, yeah, we did a number of things together and with the main team for practice games before heading out. For 6 or 8 months beforehand, we had a group together on Fumble largely to play one-off games sort of against each other and get ready, see a bunch of different builds, think about what we wanted to do as far as our builds were concerned.
Mm-hmm.
And just played a bunch of games that way. I think that really sort of got us ready to go for the tournament. Not to bury the lead, we didn't light it up like our counterparts in the Eurobowl tournament, but we had a really good time, and I'm glad we were all able to go together.
Cool. Was it difficult to come to your roster choice? Like, did you have a lot of options? Was like with the packet, did you feel like you were pushed certain directions more than others?
There were some teams that stood out more than others, Vampires being one.
Okay.
For me personally, I went with Chaos Dwarves. It wasn't really much of a choice until the day before rosters were due. And then, of course, Corn started creeping in. And luckily, the guys talked some sense into me and got me to stick with my team. So it was a nice last hurrah for them before the rule change.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think there were a fair number of teams that we all sort of identified as being, better builds for the rule set, given the particular circumstances. For me, picking Dark Elves, there were some choices that I suppose you could make, but the roster pretty well built itself for me and the way I like to play Dark Elves.
Yeah. What'd you do in terms of skill choices? Like, and if you want to throw a little bit of your thought process behind it, like, were you counterpicking any skills for what you think you might have seen, your matchups, or was it more of just I'm picking what's strong and giving them the obstacle?
Or mine's easy. Mine for Dark Elves, I'm boring. It's not the sexiest build in the world, but the build was 1.15 and 6 normal skills, no stacking. And for me, that's the 2 witch 4 blitzer build, a bench player and 2 rerolls. And I am a boring 6 blodge Dark Elf player typically. I recognize the allure of the Wrestle Witch Elf, but every time I've ever taken one, she never gets back up when she wrestles somebody. And so the 6 blodgers just tend to work a little bit better for me. So mine was fairly straightforward. It was also the exact same build I played in Alicante for World Cup the year before. So I was pretty comfortable with it.
That's cool. Yeah, witch elves have very stompable faces.
There's not a lot of players that are better suited for a foul when they're on the ground, so I don't blame people for fouling them.
What about you, Chris?
Mine was very straightforward as well. With Chaos Dwarves, I decided to go with the Minotaur. I'm a big fan. I know there's a lot of controversy around that, but
Moo.
I just feel like he gives me that ability to, yeah, well, I love him. So with that, you have to give him a skill, and he got Juggernaut.
Yep.
And then you give your Bulls block, and you have, as a tier 1 team, you have 3 skills left over: guard, guard, guard.
Yep.
Very simple. 13 players, and so you can foul and have a few replacements. You ball carry with the Hobgoblin. Simple.
Rip in peace, tackle.
Amen.
I'm really upset about it being an elf coach largely. Yeah.
Yeah, I got my Tomb Kings that
Don't
I
even want
crutch
to get
on,
into that.
and I'm scared. I'm scared, man. Like, let me have my 4 strength 5s with no activation stipulations. I don't care what else you do to the roster. Just please.
I pray that
They
they
haven't-
don't do to you what they did to me.
Yeah. They haven't redone a team yet and left them alone. So I guess the question is, what will they change?
Yeah.
And I too am a lover of the Tomb Kings, and so I hope that they don't do something too crazy.
Yeah, for
We'll
most
see.
of them, I think it's been like everything's going to be down to preference a little, but I feel like in general they've gone up in power. So I think Chaos Dwarves are kind of weird. I think
They're the
we'll see.
exception.
What's that?
Pretty objectively speaking,
Yeah.
I think Chaos Orbs are the exception. Like, objectively speaking, the big guy Negatrait turned into the worst version.
Mhm.
They lost tackle. I'm not crying about that. I'm okay with that. I'm a little
Mhm.
sad regular dwarves didn't. They left rerolls the same. Still no access to passing.
Mhm.
The Hobgoblin Stabber costs too much. It's just
Yeah.
a little weird.
Yeah, it's the additional positions that kind of throw me. It just seems weird. Seems kind of out of place.
Yeah, I think I think that they have the potential with the Chaos Dwarves at least to be an interesting team in the long run for the way GW really intends the game to be played, which is through league and progression and seasons and things like that. The Ironheart skin plus the ability to build into block guard pieces with the Flamesmiths too is nice, but it's hard to argue they're not worse in tourneys.
Well, they dropped a tier.
I was not a
didn't
fan
they?
of the Flamesmith. No, still
No, they
tier 1.
didn't. They're tier 1.
No, they're still tier 1.
I thought they were
Yep,
tier
they're
2.
still tier 1.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, see,
think
that
we'll
would have made
playing them
sense.
Yeah, I think we'll see
I'm playing them in
TOs start to
Fumbles,
drop
Second
them.
Sons.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
I think we'll start to see TOs
Yeah.
drop them
And,
in tournaments into tier 1.5 or maybe some tier 2 as things move on. But
Mhm.
I'm watching it actively for my tournament in the summertime just to kind of see what the statistics support, because I don't see a reason to.
if you
nerf
have
them
a
for no reason.
if you have a 4-tier or 5-tier tournament, there's no reason not to drop them to a solid 2.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if you have a tournament, there's no reason not to have fewer than 7 tiers. So, arguably 14 tiers, but
hey. Let's make that argument. I'd love to hear that. We'll come back next week.
Right. All right. So let's talk a few different things. Feel free to ramble about anything related to this. We obviously you flew to Europe, right? The traveling, was there anything cool you did? Anything noteworthy that wasn't Blood Bowl related? And also, let's talk about logistics in terms of getting to the tournament. Like, was it a thing where you showed up at, some warehouse in, an abandoned parking lot and you didn't know what was going on? Or was it a big, fancy, shiny palace, a castle on, by the seaside? What were we looking at for your travel experiences here?
Sure, I'll start. Yeah, it was as far as the physical location was concerned. The tournament was held in a large hall that was connected to a gaming convention that was just running in Athens while we were there.
Okay.
This tournament didn't have a sort of a set place for us all to stay. Like,
Okay.
For example, they had done in Malta 2 years beforehand. They had us all in one hotel that they rented out and then had shuttles, there and back. Athens had a pretty good public transportation system with a metro that was pretty good. And so they did a good job at telling people stay wherever you want within the city, within the metro line. Here's the metro stop for it. Here's where the venue was. We sort of walked over the day before and made sure we knew where we were going. But that's kind of what the venue structure was like for it. As far as going over there, my wife and I went the week in advance and sort of tried to turn it into a vacation for us while we were over there. We went island hopping for most of the week before the tournament. We were on several Greek islands, just having a good time, seeing the sights. And then we got into Athens proper on Thursday night, and then had a day before the tournament to get going. But yeah,
I flew out of Tampa and went to Istanbul through Frankfurt.
Okay.
And that was incredible. So I got to spend, I think, 3.5 days in Istanbul. That was an experience. I recommend it to anybody. I got to see the Blue Mosque, which is possibly the most beautiful building I've ever been in. I got to be in the Hagia Sophia, which is probably the most important building I've ever been in. And then I got to go to the Topkapi Palace and see relics from Byzantine times, original copies of the Quran, just so many relics and weapons, the sword of Muhammad. I mean, just the coolest stuff you've ever seen. And then I was sad to leave Istanbul, but went to Athens. I'm glad I went to Istanbul because 10 days in Athens would have been too much.
Yeah.
We got an Airbnb. I got an Airbnb, and like Sean was saying, the public transit system, the metro there is like that's actually world class. It is so good because Athens is a huge sprawling city, but you can hop on for like a week for like €5 or €8 or something
Nice.
and just go anywhere. But for the airport, be
Yeah.
careful about that.
Be careful about the airport. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. If you go to the airport, for those of you who don't know, if you go to the airport without buying the special ticket, say you want to greet a friend, they'll fine you. And there's nothing you can say to talk your way out of it.
Okay.
So I think I owe the Greek government with fees. I think they're going to charge me like between 300 and €600. So I'm basically banned from Greece at this point. I'm not going back.
You got a warrant in Greece.
Yeah, the metro
They told me-
was
they told me-
comparable. Sorry, the metro was comparable to DC, where I lived for about 8 months working, or New York. It was great. You could get anywhere. It was reliable. It was cheap. It was safe. It was great.
Was on time. You never had to wait. It was like 4 minutes max
Nice.
between trains. It was just, it was incredible. So for a really cheap price, you got to travel everywhere instead of walking.
Yeah.
I spent a lot of my time at Bayraktaris, the restaurant in Monastiraki. I think I went there 12 times.
What'd you have?
Yeah, we had a team dinner on Saturday night
Okay.
there, and they were like, you guys were like best friends, you and the owner.
Yeah, they recognized me by the end. It was really cool to have your usual. So,
Did they
Yeah.
have Greek food there?
oh, the best. Yeah, everything. It was actually really well priced and really good food, and the beers were cheap. Service was friendly. One night I was walking through, I was bored, so I just took the tram to Monastiraki by myself. I was walking through and I go, I wonder if there's anybody from Blood Bowl that I'll recognize here in Athens. Like, 4 million people. I'm like, oh, let's go look for somebody from Blood Bowl, right? And as I'm walking through, I'm wearing my Crow Dog jersey, my
Mhm.
Irish jersey from Eurobowl in Malta. And I hear Crow Dog from across the way. And there's the entire Irish team. They'd just been talking about how stupid of a name. They were making fun of their friend for how stupid his name was. And then they saw his jersey when they looked up. And so I sat and had beers with the Irish team all night.
Nice. Nice,
Yeah.
nice. Yeah, that's the cool thing about traveling to events. Like, I mean, it's one thing to be in another country for sure. It's a different scale, but even just ones in the U.S., like the after the tournament dinners or hanging out in the Chaos Cup hall afterwards and never speaking of it again. Like, there's a lot of good memories there.
Yeah.
All right. So, morning of, you're going in. Do you feel prepared?
I did. As it turned out, maybe we were inadequately. based on the results. But we had a good first day, actually. Is the story will tell. Day 2 was rough,
Mhm.
but no, I thought we were pretty adequately prepared. I mean, we had Chris and I had been there. All 4 of our teammates for the Open team had played in Malta before. I believe all of them as well were in Alicante, so we'd had some international experience. We knew kind of what we were going to be getting into.
Mhm.
And I didn't hate the matchups, that at least the first one that we knew was coming anyways, that morning.
That's cool. So you had advance notice
Yeah,
on your pairings, or at least the first one.
I think we had 24 hours notice, give or take,
Mhm.
of the team we were playing and the individual matchups, as well as you could see what their roster was as well. Yeah. And they did that pretty well in the other rounds as well. We would get advance notice, at least as far as like when the round got set, we could see what other people had as far as their builds.
Cool. Yeah, it's something that's pretty common in card games. Whenever they go to Top Cut, they just release all the deck lists. They had problems with when the deck list stayed sealed. Any of the really well-known players, they would have scouts that ran around the venue, and they would like write down what the other top players' deck lists were. And it got to the point where it was easier just to release it. I think that's especially with something like Blood Bowl, where it's not like secret knowledge. Like it just makes sense to do that. All right, so you're there. You hit your round 1. What are you facing? How did it go? Anything noteworthy? Or are you happy with it?
we were up against Minatari.
Okay.
Is an Italian team in yellow shirts. They're pretty notorious. It was not a great first matchup, but we did really well.
Okay.
Um, I played against a very, let's call him animated, is probably the most diplomatic way of putting it. Passionate would be another one. Very passionate coach who was not happy with the final result of the match. Dark Elves 2-1. It would be the first of 3 Dark Elf matches I would have in a row. So.
Yeah, I played a very good Lizard Man coach. I think he was 215 rated, and the round. I believe we drew the round. We was a really great result, based on preceding. I mean, all their entire team were 200 rated players basically with the teams that they had brought, and I played, like I said, a Lizard coach. I lost 2-1, but that was because I knew a draw would get us the win for the team based on where our game was. So
Right.
I was stalling out, and the only thing he could do, which he did, was he with no rerolls, he's 6+ dodged with his Croxagore into his zone, 5+ dodged out. Had to go for it, I think, once, and then 1 and 3 got the pow to knock me down. so, so
Lottie.
we drew the round instead of winning the round, but it turned out okay for the team. That was one of our tougher, I thought, rounds, especially on opening day.
Cool. Yeah. Well, sometimes it helps to get a sweaty round at first too, because it kind of gets you over your nerves if you had any.
Hmm.
And there's also if you just completely bomb out the first round in a Swiss format, then you get the slower current to climb up to. But
Amen.
people have mixed opinions about that. Yeah. So round 2, what was it looking like?
So round
We played
2, we
Minatory
played.
again.
Yeah, we played the same club's second team, I
Okay.
believe. We had played the first team in the opening round, and from a seeding perspective, I don't remember exactly where we were, but I think we were 8th or 9th rated, as far as our combined ratings,
Mm-hmm.
for the teams that we were playing, and Minatari was also a top 10 team, that we were playing as well. So kind of a rough opening draw, but we got through it, and then we played their secondary team in the second round. I played Dwarves, got the 2-1 grind. I hit a 1 turn at the end of the first half,
Nice.
against the guy who did not set up well to stop it. And then I elf stalled for 8 turns to beat him 2-1.
I played Dark Elves again, but
Mm-hmm.
it was a little different. I ended up with a draw. When we were playing, the last 4 rounds or so, I had the ball. And there was a lot of fighting. And there was a chance to score. It was not a good chance. I'm not going to sit here and pretend like it was a sure thing.
Mm-hmm.
But there was a chance I could have to score and win it. But if I fail, and I'm playing against Elves, he's set up to pick it up, scoop it, score it on me, and then I
Yeah.
lose. So I looked down the table, and a draw won it for our team, and I was like, all right, not even gonna try it. It was like a 4-up, 3-up, no rerolls. And I'm like, any other time if it was me, I'd do it, but not right now, not in a team format.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, sometimes that's a real for people that haven't done it before. There's a real different dynamic in team tournaments sometimes, where sometimes the thing to do is to swallow your pride and eat a result that might not be the best that you could do, but it gets the teams through. And there's so many rounds, especially in later round, tournaments where your team is doing well. A draw is a really, really good result sometimes.
Well, ultimately, the win's the win, and you're focusing on the team win, not on individual wins. So, absolutely.
That's what we flew there for, yeah, for sure.
Here's a question for you. This is going a little off track, but for future team events, do you feel like having one team member that has a really, really strong draw list, that obviously you're going to try to win if you can, if it's reasonable, but having one that kind of specializes in always getting the draw, do you think that's call it an anchor or something? Do you think that's a reasonable thing to look for? Or do you think it would still be better for everybody just to try to balls to the wall and try to get as many wins as you can?
What do you think, Sean?
So I think it depends on the size of the team,
Mm-hmm.
to a large extent. With 4 people on the team, I think the answer is no. I think it's probably a better choice to have 4 teams that can all pull wins. And that's not to say that we had a vampire team, for example. I mean, they can blow up sometimes on you, but I think for 4, I think it's probably better to have shots at the win at all 4 seats. For a larger tournament team, like for example World Cup, my team, which did pretty well, I think we were the top finishing U.S. team for my team. We had one individual, Aaron Franklin, who was playing Orcs specifically as a draw team for us
Nice.
to a large extent. And it ended up helping. I think he was, I want to say he was maybe 1-4-1 for us, but a lot of those draws we needed. So I think it depends on the team and the tournament build.
Yeah, it's a common tactic in some other games I played that did team tournaments. So it's really interesting. I think too, with as much as you plan anything, you never know what matchups you're running into, or what players. And obviously, for something like any major European tournament, really, it's going to be stacked. What you're running up against. So, second match is over. Lunch break. What's it look like?
I don't even remember
the best
what we
one
did.
we've had at a Blood Bowl tournament. Dude, it was so well. First off, they had passed out the paper, so you just walk up and get it.
Okay.
That was
That's
good,
right.
right off the bat. Easy.
Yep.
My match finished, walked up, handed them the paper, they handed me a bag. I'm like, what's this? I open it up. There's a salad with dressing in a container, tightly sealed. Freshest salad you've ever had. With the cheese, with the dressing. Fresh Greek cheese. There was a roll of like freshly baked bread. I forget what the meat was. It was something like chicken.
It's chicken, I think.
It was a full meal with dessert, with salad, with everything, and it was so high quality, so well prepared. Each proportioned in its throwaway container. It tasted good. It was filling. It was easy. Without a doubt, the best meal I've had at a Blood Bowl tournament. So if there's one thing that everybody can take away from this Euro Bowl, that's how you do the meals.
Nice.
Yeah, having
Malta's
everything.
how you do the steak.
Yeah,
that's how you do the meals.
Yeah. Prepackaged everything was great. As far as the ability to get in and get your stuff and get out. There was no line. It was just really easy. I thought they did a really nice job with that.
That's really cool. Yeah, that's definitely some good feedback, because I always love talking tournament logistics just on any scale, but it's cool to hear at the bigger events that they managed to solve some of it. I think it was LVO year before last. Um, from what I understand, FLG had supposedly like, oh, we've got everything set up. You can buy food, at the event. And then, yeah, no, it did not work that way at all. Everyone had a lunch break at the same time too, so it was just like line wrapped around. This last year they had it more figured out for sure, but yeah, it takes a ton of like pressure off people to have the logistics of all that stuff sorted out, to have their pairings, to know when the next round is starting, all that. So it's good to hear it's
It
running
is
well.
a it's a tough thing to figure out, and I've seen all sorts of ways people do it. In America, people like to do food trucks. I personally hate when I hear that there's food trucks there. I love food truck food like everybody else, but I know for a fact food trucks take for freaking ever.
Mm-hmm.
So when everybody has the same lunch break and there's food trucks, I'm always like, ugh, oh my God, right?
Yeah.
So that's one way that I've seen it done. I don't like it. The other way was like at World Cup, they had these big, this wok essentially, and they were making rice or paella or whatever, but the line was literally 2,000 people.
Yeah, yeah.
It's
Forever.
crazy to wait in that line in the sun for so long. So the way that they handled it was essentially a European version of an American sack lunch,
Okay.
but their version was so fresh with
Hmm.
such tasty food, good quality food, that it was, walk up, take it. That's the way to do it.
Yep, I agree.
Yeah. That's really cool. I love to hear the details like that. All right, so you've had your delicious, amazing, best ever at a Blood Bowl tournament lunch. You're going into round three. Are you feeling any confidence here? Do you feel like you have any momentum? How are you approaching this round, and how did it go for you?
Yeah, I mean, we've at this point we're a win and a draw against a very good team.
Mm-hmm.
We were fairly highly seeded after 2 rounds going into the third round. I don't remember exactly what table. I think we were around table 10, table 12, something like that, for that third round game. We played the Czech national team, or at least their top team, at least that was playing in Europen. Um, and
Mhm.
I thought had four very good coaches. It went well for us. We ended up winning the round and advancing to a very good game the next morning against a different team. But in this one, I played a necro team. The coach was very good. We had a 1-1 tie, and it was like Chris was talking about earlier on. It was one of those games for me where I knew the tie gave us what we needed.
Mm-hmm.
So I screwed around, I think, the entire second half. Didn't seriously take any risks. Didn't really try to score because I knew that the tie got us what we needed there. So that was my third game.
If you're trying to stall out with dark elves, or go for the draw, if you had to give like a 2 sentence summary of what your strategy is for that, what would you say? Is it just screens? Like obviously you're denying blocks and
Sure.
things like that, but what?
Yeah, it starts in the first half, and it really depends on what happened there. I love to kick and play defense first because number one, you have all your players, and number two, it lets me know what I need to do in the second half with a team that I can realistically score in 2 or 3 turns if I absolutely need to. I'd rather know what I need to do. It also allows me to a certain extent, control whether I'm either gonna play for a full stop in the first half or a turnover and try and score on their drive, or whether I'm going to try to push them in for a touchdown quick enough that I can score back in the first half.
Mhm.
That's what happened in this game. I think I got him to score in, I think, turn 5, which gave me a full 3 turns to score back. And then in the second half, yeah, I depending on the opponent, will oftentimes really dictate what kind of elf stall it looks like. For me, it's usually a Vengabus, so a standard X cage with an extra guy in there to be an extra assist. And I will often throw sort of a cloud around it so that there's additional dodges people need to just get at the cage.
Mhm.
And then I will usually, if I'm really not trying to score at all, the second half just becomes about moving the Vengabus from side to side, maybe advancing a square or two, not really getting ahead of myself, keeping the entire team together, and basically just daring them to roll 5s and 6s and get into the cage.
Yeah. Okay. Makes a lot of sense.
That's if it optimally works out,
Right.
which it oftentimes does not. Something will happen.
And
But
9 plus
yeah,
is not terrible, but it's still 9 plus.
and in doing things like that, a lot of times you're trying to avoid the 1-1 on dodges with dodge. And if you miss the wrong one of those, as happened to me in a later round, we'll talk about. Sometimes it doesn't work.
Yeah.
So that was
played
my
my
game against
third Dark Elf
the Czech
team.
team.
Yeah.
The Czech team was really nice when they showed up. You know how teams will often exchange gifts. We gave them dice. They gave us fudge.
Okay.
And so I got to eat some delicious Czech fudge while beating the snot out of this Dark Elf coach. And that was a lot of fun.
Nice, nice.
That's how that went.
How was the night after that? Obviously, you are transitioning to next day. Did you actually sleep?
Mhm.
Well, so I mean, first we were
went out.
paying a lot of attention
Okay.
to our counterparts on the national team because they were doing
Yep.
so well. They finished
Yep.
on top table.
Yep.
They beat the Finns, some good friends of mine, and they were doing incredible. They knew their next match was against France. France was favorites to win it all, and they were psyched, and we were psyched for them. So after the first day, we're 2 wins and a draw. We're going to be on table 4, I think, Sean,
Table 4
in the morning.
Yep.
So we're doing incredible. The first day we're doing so well, and our national team is going to be playing top spot. I think they finished ranked number 1. So everybody, they were talking about it. America's number 1 after the first day. So we went out. We had dinner at Bayraktaris, and it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, we had the entire. It wasn't everybody from both teams, but we did a joint outing for everybody plus the people that they were there with, and we must have had 18, 20 people at this long snaking table, and it was a lot of fun. It was a really fun night.
It's cool.
Yeah, we had the music, the lights, the string lights, the plants around us. So we had the live Greek music and everything. The ambiance was great. Everybody could see each other, get up, walk around, have a conversation. The food, drinks were flowing. It was good.
Cool. All right. So you're up in the morning. You walk back in. With your knowledge of what your next matchup was going to be, how are you feeling going into it? And did your performance reflect that?
Yes, and awesome and no is the answer to that.
Okay.
So, not to bury the lead, we didn't know it on Saturday night, but our squad was actually done winning games on Saturday.
Okay.
We went in. I think we were all, we knew what was sort of ahead of us. We were playing, I think, the top French Europen team that was there on table 4, and so all the players were good. We kind of knew that it was going to be a tough match. For myself, anyways, I played a 220 rated Dark Elf coach. I lost a game 1-0, and I lost touchdowns in both halves to 1 reroll ones at inopportune times. So was right there the whole way, but it just wasn't quite enough against. Oftentimes against a good coach, if you roll as Elves, if you roll 1 set of 1-1s, the game is over. And so I lost 2 touchdowns that way, which was not really the way I wanted the game to go, but sometimes that's the way it works out.
My coach was a human coach.
Okay.
I couldn't for the life of me tell you his roster build. He was rated much lower with humans than he actually was. It's one of those coaches that when you look up their NAF sheet, you're like, holy crap. But then, like, if you just look at what they're playing, you're like, oh, I got this. All right. So that was me. I'm walking in going, oh, I've got a 182 human coach. This is going to be great. And then it was a 0-0 draw. So I suppose that's okay, but it was really, really sad. Just not a great game, not a lot going on. So yeah, 0-0 draw, quad loss, not great.
Yeah. Yeah, as far as NAF ratings, like when I got back into the game, I didn't realize anyone cared. So I don't know. I consider myself for like if I'm going to like a 16-person US tournament or whatever, I'll if they have a weird trophy, most fouls, that kind of thing. I'm the guy who's like, I'm gonna get that one. And I just realized I've just like tanked my NAF score. But I wanted to get as many weird side trophies to appear on my profile as possible. Like I want to taste the rainbow, so to speak. But it's interesting.
Nice.
I guess that just means that people get to underestimate my mediocrity. So, all right. So round 4, not so hot. Round 5, look up at all.
So we dropped quite a bit, and
Mhm.
we played the first of 2 teams from London. So
Okay.
they're all British fellas, no language barrier anymore. I'm up against a chaos team, just straight chaos,
Okay.
and he's got guard on some beastmen, and it's okay. It looks fine. The roster's fine. Okay, time to come back, Chris.
I'm laughing because
So we
I
set
know how the
up.
story ends.
We set up, and he rolls a blitz, and he takes the ball, and he kills my Minotaur.
Okay.
And then the next turn he kills another guy, and he kills another. And I think by the end of the game, I had like 4 guys on the pitch, and he
Okay.
wasn't even doing anything special, just rolling hot and fouling every turn. He was very nice about it. Very, very nice guy. After he was up, see, this is the thing that like is very uncharacteristic of me, but uh, I was down so many players, just by sheer, it was horrible. That when I went down after the blitz, I went down 2-0. I just kind of gave up
Yeah.
and just wanted to have fun with this guy because he was so nice. So I was like, "Well, boys, this is a loss. If I'm gonna lose, I'm gonna lose hard." And I and just you have those games where like all you can do, you're like, "Okay, my turn. Stand
Mhm.
up, stand up, stand up. Your turn." And that's what it was. So I lost 4-0 to a chaos coach.
Nice.
Uh, and yeah, yeah. And I told Saul that story. He was like, "So how'd you do in the last round?" And I was like, "I don't want to tell you. I don't want to say it out loud." How'd you do? Oh, I lost to a chaos coach. Oh, what was the score? 4-0. And he looked at me with this look of just like disapproval. It kind of broke my heart a little bit. I was like, "You don't understand. You don't understand." Yeah,
Yeah,
Oh,
so I
beautiful.
was
that's it.
I played Dark Elf Mirror match, the second one of the day so far. There were a lot of Dark Elves. It was I contend that it might have been the best build in the tournament, or at least the one that I think every team was going to bring a Dark Elf team.
Mhm.
I think that was mainly true for most of the teams that we saw. My game was a 1-1 tie. It was one of those games where neither of us could really get anything going for the most part. I think we both scored on each other's drives. The problem for me, yeah, it was just a weird game.
Yeah.
And the problem for me was that we rolled Sweltering Heat, and every time we couldn't get the Sweltering Heat to go away, and every time it was 3 players, and every time it was 3 of my Blodgers that
Mm.
would be kicked out. So then I'd lose like the other 3 Blodgers that had played last drive, kind of thing. So it was just kind of an uphill battle the whole game. He had problems too from the same perspective.
Yeah.
It by no means was one-sided from there, but it was just one of those that neither of us could get anything done. So, and at that point, like I knew that I think it was pretty obvious that we were going to lose that round. I knew what was going on with Chris over there.
Yeah.
I think that was one of our games where our vampire coach was just getting rolled too, and I was like, all right, well, fine, okay.
Yeah.
So, on the plus side, though, was there another delicious bagged lunch?
Yes.
There was. I think it
Again, I
was. I think
can't
it was
remember.
pork that day. I think it was some kind of pork cutlet or something that day.
Yeah, and there was potatoes, I want to say,
Yep.
as well with
Yep.
it.
Okay.
Hmm.
Same thing. We had a dessert. It was like a pudding with
Hmm.
I think there was chocolate or something on top, and like its own little spoon. You could eat your chilled pudding, and yeah, just great.
You're making me want to hit up a Greek restaurant, but it's not gonna like I'm gonna be disappointed just like in comparison just to your description of whatever I get here. So I hope you're proud of yourself.
The food was the best part of the trip.
The
I
food was great.
mean,
The food was really good.
yeah, that's one of the things I love about traveling for Blood Bowl. It just obviously I've talked about it a ton on my channel, but yeah, I love food. Okay. Final game. At this point, you're feeling like obviously you're at the lower tables and stuff now. Does that take all the pressure off? And especially seeing kind of not to eclipse y'all's experience or anything, but seeing what's happening on the Euro Bowl side, like what's kind of the mood going into round 6?
Yeah, I think well, we were cognizant of the fact that they had that our Euro Bowl counterparts had lost an extraordinarily close match to the French, where
Mm-hmm.
I think one set of dice in one turn would have flipped it
Yep.
for them. And we knew that they were going into the final round on table 2 with a real opportunity to steal the whole thing if the Polish team playing the French on the top table were able to get a draw. The U.S. team would have won overall outright. And so I think for us, that was I don't want to say I wasn't concerned about our game, but I knew that like we weren't really playing for anything at that point, and they were.
Mm-hmm.
And so from that perspective, we were all really excited for what they were doing. And it was just awesome to see for all of U.S. Blood Bowl. It was really great. I mean, I remember 2 years beforehand when we were in Malta, I was the captain of the open team there, and I got invited to a captain's meeting. And I tell you what, it was the first year we'd have been invited to the international competition, and all of the coaches from the captains from the European teams were like, "Yeah, we're just really glad you guys are here.
Mm-hmm.
Don't take this too seriously. Just have a good time. We're really glad you're here." I don't think they're saying that anymore.
Yeah.
And it was really great to see them not only win for themselves but win for all of us, and help to take U.S. Blood Bowl and really put it on the map. But
Yeah.
I don't know, Chris, thoughts too.
Well, in our last round, like Sean said, I mean, when you're sweaty like John is, you always take everything seriously, right? So we went into our last round, and we wanted to win, of course.
Yeah. Yeah.
We were playing some really nice fellows with some really snappy jerseys
Yeah.
from London. My opponent was an Amazon coach, and I mean, his roster was good, and he was a good coach. So I'm playing him, and he scores on me, and so I'm down 1-0, and I'm like, okay, well, I can win this because I've got time in the first half to score again. Just get a removal or two. It'll be fine. They're Amazons, which with Amazons and Norse, you either knock out everybody or nobody.
Mm-hmm.
It always goes that way. So this was one of those games where you just don't knock out anybody. I still had tackle, didn't knock anybody out. Yeah. So at the end, I think it was he scored against me when I was receiving. So in the second half, he had the ball and he just docked me the whole freaking game, um, to the point where I had him surrounded in his corner of the end zone, and I just couldn't get in.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was a loss for me again. 1-0. My first 3 games I won 2, drew 1. My last 3 games I drew 1, lost 2.
Okay.
So complete swing. 2-2.
Not to be outdone, I took one of the most demoralizing losses I've ever taken
Okay.
in a Blood Bowl tournament. There's been a few that stand out over the last 500 or so games I've played, but this one's up there in the top 5. He was a high elf coach, really great guy. He was a total riot. He was actually, his wife was Greek, and they were in town, and he had to leave and go to some cousin's wedding that evening, kind of thing. So,
Okay.
and we were already, because of like the fact that neither of us were really playing for anything at that point. They were more than happy to be drinking with us in the final round, and we were happy to do so too. And a high elf game, high elves, dark elves it's not a matchup I'm particularly concerned about usually.
Right.
My biggest problem is that they're faster than I am, and that unlike wood and pro elves, their armor's as good as mine for the most part, so it's not as easy to get an attrition battle going in there. But he proceeded to just peel players off every single turn with no he didn't really have a lot of combat skills. Most of it was dodge, and he didn't have any damage skills. He didn't have Mighty Blow. He had a tackle guy, but it wasn't doing anything most of the game. He was just rolling open stars and removing players.
Yeah.
And I got it down to, in the last drive, I scored, and I think I had to score with, giving him 3 turns left.
Mm-hmm.
And he got down to, on turn 7, he had 2 potential scorers in scoring range, plus a third. There was a blitzer that had gotten stunned the turn before that was going to unstun. And so I had a bunch of guys I had to do something about. I hero balled into a side cage and shoved his ball carrier back out of range of scoring. There was no way for him to chain push him. I chain blocked myself into the second player so that I could get a second blitz, essentially. Knocked down and stunned that player. And then all that was left is a high elf blitzer that's on the ground. And I brought 3 assists over to go foul him, to stun him, so that he was just totally out of scoring range. And I set it up where, in order to get guys, as many as I could there, I gave him essentially the ability, if he didn't get stunned, to run up the gut afterwards, between my guys, and then out. And then all I needed afterwards was to foul with a blitzer that I dodged on him, stun him, and we're done. And I 1-1'd the foul dodge. He then proceeds to get up and dance his way through my players and double go for it. And he had to hand off to his thrower in 2 zones and dodge out and throw a bomb, and he got all of it. So it's like, all right, fine, we'll take the loss.
Yeah.
The guy felt really bad about it afterwards. It's what his team's supposed to do.
Yeah.
And so from that perspective, it was kind of the cherry on top of what was sort of a letdown of a day.
Right. Well, sometimes the best laughs are had at the lower tables too. Like if all the pressure's off, you're just playing Blood Bowl to play Blood Bowl at that point.
Yep. So
that's cool.
All in all, though, we had a really great time. It was a great experience. The 4 guys we had on the team were great. Couldn't have picked a better group of guys to go to war with, and we were having great results on day 1. Day 2 just didn't work out for us. And frankly, if you had the other 2 guys here, they'd have stories about like the asinine stuff that happened to them in some of their games too. Sometimes that's just the way the game goes.
Absolutely.
Yeah. As far as like you said, as far as teams go, couldn't ask for a better team. I mean, we had 4 amazing coaches. Myself and 3 amazing coaches. And man, what a great group of guys to have fun with. I mean, we really did. We played as a team, had a great time, really supported each other, and it was fun.
That's cool. Yeah, I love team tournaments. Just the format in general, it doesn't matter what game it is. It makes some of the wins more exciting, and it makes some of the losses a little bit softened, especially if like other people bomb out too. So all right, so overall it sounds like it was a great experience. I am looking to most likely go this next year, so we'll see how all that works out. But
cool. Yeah, they've put the dates out for next year in Budapest, Hungary. I think it's October 3rd and 4th, or October 4th and 5th, something like that. And for the U.S., there'll be tryouts, I would imagine, coming up shortly in the beginning of the new year for the top team. And then there's also we work to place people on secondary teams as well. We've got pretty good record of getting extra teams in for what's a pretty competitive tournament.
Yeah. And that's going to wrap up the end of part 1. The link to part 2 should be in the description, and I'll try to have a little floating bubble thing on here so that you can see it.
Turnover!